Grab your leg warmers and lock your doors at night, because Ti West is back with the last installment of A24's first horror franchise. That's right, Mia Goth is reprising her role as Maxine Minx as she tries to build the life that she deserves in 1980s Hollywood, against the backdrop of the Night Stalker murders. But here's the multi-million-dollar question. Will this 80s Hollywood slasher continue the trend set by X and Pearl, which both scored over 90% on Rotten Tomatoes and smashed the box office, or will it struggle to find an audience beyond hardcore fans? There is a lot of hype around this movie being the third in the trilogy, but A24 still operates in something of a bubble fandom, and are not the best at engaging with audiences who are not already fans of theirs. So can they reach enough new viewers to turn all three into box office hits? We asked over 3,000 movie lovers, scoured the internet, leaving no comment section unturned, and crunched the numbers. We looked at the marketing strategies, and indeed the company marketing it, to figure out if Maxine Minx really will be destined for Hollywood glory, or will end up just another victim of Tinseltown. Now that we've set the stage, let's dive into the nitty-gritty details, and where better to start than with the almighty dollar. We don't know the exact budget figure for Maxine yet, but given what we see in the trailer and the impressive cast list, we would expect it to be higher than that of the first two films, which were each made on a budget of $1 million. Why? Location, location, location. Unlike X and Pearl, which were primarily confined to a single farm setting, Maxine explores various Hollywood locales. This expanded scope inevitably drives up production costs, even with Universal Pictures potentially offering favorable rates for shooting on their backlot. But will this potentially increased budget translate to broader appeal? Possibly, if spent in the right places. Interestingly, A24's core fanbase doesn't seem to care much about the expanded scope or increased production values. However, they do connect with the 1980s aesthetic, with the authentic look and feel of the era being a major part of the appeal for around 27% of social media commenters, about on par with the 60s appeal of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. So while Maxine might cost more, its success likely hinges on the same factors that made X and Pearl hits: compelling storytelling, Mia Goth's performance, and A24's unique brand of horror. So what is this compelling story that A24 hopes will not only satisfy their devoted fanbase, but also reel in new audiences and justify that bigger budget? In a surprise twist that no one could have predicted, Maxine centers around adult film star Maxine Minx. It's 1985, 6 years after the events of X, and the only survivor of the porn shoot Old Woman Massacre has made it all the way to Hollywood to follow her dream of being famous. There's bleach blonde hair, a VHS video store, and pounding synth pop. She gets a role in the career-launching horror genre, while serial killer the Night Stalker, played in real life by Richard Ramirez, hunts down and kills Hollywood starlets. She's pursued by a private detective whose very important client sent him to find her, while two cops are hunting the Night Stalker, but they might just uncover Maxine's past as well. All very ominous, and there are some pretty wild theories about how all these elements tie together. Fans are theorizing that Maxine herself may be the murderer, or her dad, or Elizabeth Debicki, or Lorraine from X. There are interesting stretches of logic to justify each theory, and all this speculation has comment sections ablaze. Although in this postmodern age, do we really think it would be as simple as Maxine being the killer, as parts of the trailer seem to hint at? All we know is the film is part slasher, part whodunit, and all A24, which means twists and subversions are definitely in store. And who's the mastermind who managed to shoot and release a highly praised trilogy in just 4 years? Well, these films are the creation of director Ti West, who has been turning out horror movies since 2005. Looking at his Rotten Tomatoes page, his movies are much better received by critics than by audiences, with the exception of the X films, although even those were scored 10 and 20% lower by audiences. Despite his early critical success, X and Pearl were his first commercial successes, made for just $1 million each, and pulling in $11.8 and $9.4 million respectively. He's amassed a cult following for the quality and originality of his films, and many were excited to see what he could do with A24's backing. 15% of comments explicitly expressed praise for him and his work, and confidence in his ability to round out the trilogy with a third banger. But what makes him stand out in the horror space? One of the main things is his seamless blending of the gory and fun tropes that are synonymous with the genre, with introspective and nuanced themes, all wrapped up in strong, creatively staged visual storytelling. In X and Pearl, he deals with topics like the fleeting nature of youth and beauty, the emptiness that its passing can leave behind, and the hunger for fame and what people will do to get it. Working in a genre that so often ends up formulaic and shallow, or just an excuse to show boobs, West is adamant that shocking, gory movies can be well made and show boobs. These themes elevate the movies above just slasher flicks, and with that A24 logo, can attract fans from other genres. Off the back of the hype for X and Pearl, he's put together an impressive ensemble cast for Maxine, with a lot of audience draw, which he'll need if the Maxine budget is indeed higher, as we expect. So who is this impressive cast, and how many of them do you think will make it to the end? Let us know in the comments. We've mentioned Mia Goth already, whose performances have been lauded in both X and Pearl. She's worked with a number of auteur directors, having her film debut in Lars von Trier's Nymphomaniac. She is a huge draw for audiences, with around 30% of comments on the first trailer mentioning her. Her roles in Infinity Pool, A Cure for Wellness, and Suspiria have cemented her as a modern-day scream queen. You know, that and her actual screaming. Her fans have reached stand level, with thirst edits coming in thick and fast of her most iconic moments, or lines, or just that creepy smile she does at the end of Pearl. But while she does have adoring, borderline obsessive fans, her movies don't have a great track record at the box office, with only X and Pearl performing well. In fairness, she is fairly new to the game, especially for the star of a trilogy. And let's not forget that those two did more than just well, with X nearly 12xing its production budget, and Pearl nearly 10xing it. What we don't see a lot of online is mention of the lawsuit. That's right, the wife of Shia LaBeouf, that's Hollywood superstar and actual cannibal Shia Shia LaBeouf, is being sued for abuse. A background actor alleges that Goth intentionally kicked him in the head on the set of Pearl, and then belittled him when he spoke up. He claims to have had to pull over several times on his drive home because of his injury, and that he was then told he would no longer be needed on set. We've seen suspiciously little discussion of this in comment threads around Goth. It hasn't gone to court yet, and all this is only alleged, but in this post-Me Too era, we have seen plenty of people drag through the mud at the slightest hint of misconduct. We'll have to see how that plays out because the public seem to love her, for now. Alongside Goth is a movie legend and horror movie royalty, Kevin Bacon. Fans are particularly enjoying that his name was left off the list of actors who got their start in horror movies from the trailer, only to appear on screen not 10 seconds later. While he may be best known to younger fans for his work as the face of the telecoms company EE, he's had a long and accomplished career, with 7 of his 18 films making at least double their budget at the domestic box office. It is noteworthy, though, that 6 of those were pre-2000, when he was just a young, hunky guy, footloose and fancy-free. His casting definitely accounts for some of the over-indexing in the 40-plus age range that we found in our data. Elizabeth Debicki plays the horror director who gives Maxine her first shot in Hollywood. Best known for her role in Guardians of the Galaxy or her Golden Globe-nominated role in The Crown, she may bring in fans of historical dramas or comics, who, from our research, show affinity for this film. Beyond those titles, she has a following among fans of the crime genre from her roles in The Night Manager and Widows that could be converted into sweet, sweet ticket sales. Giancarlo Esposito is best known for his work in TV, most famously as Gus Fring in the Breaking Bad universe, which appeals to the same demographic as Maxine, that being the 25 to 45 age range with a slight white male lean. More recently, he has been busy, appearing in The Boys for Amazon, Star Wars for Disney, and even Far Cry 6, pretty much anywhere that he's a smart and ruthless villain, in fact. Another boost in audience reach comes from singer Halsey, whose over 31 million followers on Instagram will have seen them promoting the movie on their page. Rounding out the cast are Lily Collins, Michelle Monaghan, Bobby Cannavale, and Moses Subney, another musician/actor best known for his role in The Idol. Overall, the cast is the biggest single draw for the film. Beyond Goth, there is no second favorite, but the ensemble as a whole are contributing to about 12% of the hype, so the marketing would do well to leverage them to reach as wide an audience as possible. And it has, as we've seen posters introducing individual cast members, all retroed out with big hair and aviator glasses. This poster features little nods to the first 2 films with the pearl necklace and the X formed by the dress straps. People love an Easter egg, none more than Gen Z, who showed lower interest in the movie according to our data. Maxine's marketing is full of these little tidbits, like the poster details, the joke about Kevin Bacon's horror movie origins, Maxine seeing a psycho-esque silhouette in the window of the manor house, and the homage to Lily Collins' role as Snow White, which are being spotted in the comments section, hopefully engaging more of the Gen Z audience. We've seen 2 trailers, the first establishing Maxine in LA, on the path to stardom before leaning into the Night Stalker, creepy, girl being followed angle, very reminiscent of 80s slashers. The second shows Maxine fighting, quite literally, for her big break, despite what is going on in her personal life. Our social listening shows that the first 2 movies in the series are the second biggest draw after the cast, with 29% of those polled being familiar with X or Pearl. While this is a testament to how beloved the films are, these people are already familiar with the franchise and are already going to see the next movie. If the budget is indeed larger, then the reach of the marketing will have to extend beyond people who saw the first 2. In this regard, it does have a few things going for it. One being the large cast with a wide range of projects under their belts, and with the prestige of A24 elevating the film beyond slasher status, it may attract movie lovers who are just looking for good films regardless of genre. It also draws on true crime and movie history to tap into adjacent audiences, including the Bates Motel and house from Hitchcock's Psycho, inserts Maxine, both the character and the film, into the legacy of horror in Hollywood. While some were asking if this meant that Maxine takes place in the same universe as Psycho, cinephiles have recognized the locations to be the sets on the Universal backlot, putting Maxine right in the heart of the movie industry. Meanwhile, the threat of the Night Stalker will take a stab at recruiting true crime fans. True crime is a huge market, with Netflix in particular capitalizing over the last few years. Just look at Dahmer, which had 200 million viewing hours in its first week. That's nearly double The Crown Season 5, which released shortly after the Queen's death. Not to mention, Netflix did their own super graphic series on the Night Stalker, which performed well, ranking 3rd in viewer hours on its week of release. The series introduced one of America's most notorious killers to a new generation, on top of those that lived through his reign of terror and saw the story unfold on the news back in the 80s. This looks to be another reason that the film is over-indexing in the 40-plus age range. With about a third of podcast listeners in the US reportedly listening to true crime regularly, the marketing could be targeting this adjacency through shows like Crime Junkie, Rotten Mango, or Serial. A great way to reach new viewers is to find a way to interact with people directly, and A24 being A24 have found a way to do just that. The second trailer ends by asking, how far would you go for Maxine Minx, with a phone number that you can call and text. You might have seen this number on billboards too. A text will reply with a link to sign up to the official Maxine Minx fan club and add a contact in your phone with Maxine's photo. You'll then be in the loop for exclusives and updates. You can also call the phone number to hear Maxine's iconic line from X,
"I will not accept a life I do not deserve."
Although true fans have pointed out that the cadence is different to her delivery from X, so this line must feature in Maxine as well. Wow, nerds. Trailers are all well and good, but everyone does that, you know? And that's just not enough for West. In his words, you have to find a way to eventize these movies, taking inspiration from not only the look and feel of 70s grindhouse, he took a page out of the era's indie business model playbook and found his market without spending 7 figures. Pearl was shot back-to-back with X on the same set in New Zealand during COVID, whereas trying to come back to a prequel later would have cost significantly more. He managed to keep Pearl a secret until the premiere of X at South by Southwest, where A24 screened the first teaser, capitalizing on the media attention around the festival. They then used this same trick to announce Maxine at the Toronto Festival premiere for Pearl. If it ain't broken all that. In fact, X was rescreened for one night only on June 18th, including a 6-minute preview for Maxine after the film, and the same setup for Pearl took place on the 25th. So what do you think? Will there be an announcement for West's next film at the premiere of Maxine? West maintains that complete secrecy just adds to the excitement of the reveal, and it builds much more hype, which is crucial for a niche film with a modest budget. This type of guerrilla marketing is not new for horror movies. Just look at the stunt pulled for Megan during an NFL game. Or is that just the future of cheerleading in the age of AI? Oof. This smile marketing stunt planted creepy smiling actors behind home plate at MLB games and in the background of the Today Show. Spotting the smilers became something of an internet challenge, gaining huge audience for minimal cost. West and A24 pulled off yet another killer surprise on June 20th, when they screened Maxine in full to an unsuspecting audience during what was supposed to be a double feature of X and Pearl. During the director Q&A between films, West and Collins announced that since most everyone there had already seen Pearl, they might as well see Maxine next instead. One promo for the film features clips of interviews with Goth and Debicki, and paint Maxine as a beacon of confidence and self-belief, a popular message solidified by her line, "I will not accept a life I do not deserve." This sentiment does resonate with young women's feelings of late, with the rise of the 4B movement in Korea and its adoption to the West as well. But as we've seen from other projects like Furiosa or Acolyte, it's not as simple as having a strong female lead. The intangible quality of authenticity is what makes the message palatable, and any hint of disingenuousness will be met with a strong negative response. While it is hard to say exactly how this authenticity is detected, comparing the love for Goth in the comments to say that of Anya Taylor-Joy of Furiosa, it does seem that Goth does come across as more genuine and sincere. A good thing, as falling down at that hurdle has cost companies like Disney and Warner Brothers a lot of money recently. Traditional marketing has been effective, as the two trailers have racked up nearly 15 million views in the months since the first one dropped. That's significantly better than Pearl's lone trailer, which sits at just under 11 million. Even the X trailer, which dropped 2 years ago, is not massively ahead with 19 million views. This bodes well, as the data shows a correlation between trailer views and opening weekend figures, indicating that Maxine is doing well in achieving the broad appeal that it needs to succeed. But again, we will need to see the budget to tell just how well Maxine will have to do. So when is the opening weekend? The film drops on July 5th and is rumored to be in 3,000 plus theaters, a rarity for A24, with only Civil War so far seeing that many. It will face some competition though, from 2 films in particular. The first is Boneyard, starring Mel Gibson and Curtis 50 Cent Jackson, as he is credited. Speaking of attracting adjacent audiences, this thriller from Lionsgate is inspired by a real-life serial killer, so definitely could divide those true crime fans looking to see their favorite cases appear on the big screen. Throw in Mel Gibson and the fact that the real case dates back to 2009, and its appeal might skew towards the 40-plus age group as well, further taking away from Maxine. The other film is Vertical's Dead Whisper, more of a supernatural horror. You know, creepy house, ominously friendly hosts, remote, foggy location, that kind of thing. Both definitely have very different vibes to Maxine, but could they be enough to steal viewers who are there for the horror elements, and not because they're fans of A24 and their art house ways? We've discussed at length how the studio's fresh takes on genre films and promotion in the internet age have cemented them as the most mainstream art house studio out there. Wait, you haven't seen that video? Don't worry, it's linked in the description. Horror movies are arguably where they made their biggest impression, with 9 of the 22 that we have data for making over double their production budgets at the domestic box office. But that includes anything with horror elements. If we're talking just straight horrors, that number rises to an impressive 7 of 12, with 6 of those 7 more than tripling. In fact, last year's Aussie Horror Talk to Me did 11 times the production budget, taking $48 million on a budget of just $4.25, becoming the 9th highest grossing horror of 2023 in the US and Canada. I know we've all been warily awaiting A24's move into big franchises and IPs, but this play to balance out their auteur-centric projects with more commercial films is a necessary business strategy, especially after a string of high-profile flops, capped off by Beau is Afraid losing $35 million. Arthouse film is notoriously unreliable as a moneymaker, and these more mainstream films are there to bolster the studio's artistic side, not to replace it. We've seen them pursue the rights to the Halloween IP, and we know a prequel series to Friday the 13th is in the works, although it did fall apart earlier this year. If the X trilogy is any indication of how they will handle horror franchises, and 2024's Civil War is their version of moving into blockbusters, then the collective dismay echoed online about this new direction may prove to be premature, at least for audiences. The financial viability of their stylized spins on commercial films remains to be seen. So there you have it. We've scoured the internet, combed through the data, and left no comment section unturned, so you don't have to. And we want to hear from you all as well. Are you worried about A24's new direction into big IPs and franchises? Does the X trilogy prove that they know what they're doing? Is Mia Goth destined for stardom beyond Scream Queen status? Let us know in the comment section, and head on over to Popcorn to tell the studios exactly what you think about the movies they make. And for more analysis like this, check out our last video on George Miller's latest addition to the Mad Max universe, Furiosa, on screen now. Click me and subscribe.